Welcome to the channel. In the previous episode, I discussed all the news related to familiars, new zones, and event. But in this episode, it's time to review all the new pieces of equipment, especially since we have had them all available for 2 days already. So let's get into the new set first. And here it is worth mentioning that from Inferno 4, we can equip ourselves with the new bracelets. As description says, the new secondary slots have been added to Diablo Immortal bracelets. This item can only be crafted at a blacksmith on Inferno difficulty 4 and higher. We've also added bracelets for all other existing sets that help to reinforce the bonuses provided by the sets. But talking about the bonuses of the new set, then, 2-piece bonus. ANGMET'S Conflagration. After igniting your enemies, their burn duration is increased by 30%. And obviously duration of all the fire-related dots is increased.
But we get the same effect with 2 pieces of the Baron. Additionally, Baron works for other effect as well. That's why I believe that 2 pieces of new set are pointless to use unless we use it with Baron to get 60% total bonus.
New set is much better with the second bonus. ANGMET'S Conflagration, 4-piece. There is a 15% chance of igniting an enemy and dealing damage, burning them for damage over 3 seconds. This stacks up to 3 times. And this is the moment when using this set really makes sense, especially since we now have more possibilities to combine set bonuses. I believe that mixing it with Baron, Banquet, or Flagellant can be very profitable, and definitely gonna test it. ANGMET'S Conflagration 6-piece bonus. After igniting an enemy, your attacks become more powerful for 12 seconds, cooldown over 40 seconds. Further attacks against enemies with 12 stacked burning statuses will explode, causing damage to the immediate area. Cooldown is half of a second. And at least on paper it looks pretty good, since this bonus provides us with some instant area of damage. Downside is long cooldown though. 3 new legendary gems have joined the lineup. First, Unrefined Passage 1-star gem. Damage you take while moving is reduced by 15%. You have a 4% chance to be immune to an attempt to slow you. And despite big sympathy for the 1-star legendary gems, I don't really see a good way to utilize it. Damage reduction and slow resistant are simply negligible here. For the next gem, the operation is much better. Igneous Scorn 2-star gem. Your critical hits cause explosions that deal 120% base damage plus for 186 to nearby enemies. These explosions cannot occur more often than once every 6 seconds. After triggering an explosion, your damage is increased by 10% for 2 seconds. So not only do we get additional burst damage after landing a critical hit, so in a sense it increases critical damage, but also we receive 10% bonus to all damage dealt. All of these with just 6 seconds cooldown. I have no doubt that this is one of the best 2-star gem available in the game. And finally the last one, Maw of the Deep 5-star gem. Dealing damage conjures a whirlpool at the enemy's location that pulls nearby enemies to its center. After 2 seconds, a massive sea monster erupts from the whirlpool, dealing for 150% base damage plus 1700 to all nearby enemies and knocking them up. cannot occur more often than once every 20 seconds. The sea monster also destroys enemy armor for 6 seconds, increasing the damage they take from you by 24%. So in this case, the first operation of the gem resembles the wizard's arcane wind. It can be irritating, but you can get out of it. However, the effect that appears after 2 seconds looks like very overpowered. Knockup and damage increase will make this gem a base for characters like Blood Knight to maintain crowd control chain. I think it is a worthy substitute for meteorites. Now let's move on to new essences and class relevance.
Wizard item. Heart of the Storm. Damage to players reduced by 10%. Damage to monsters remains unchanged. Wizard no items. Bluster Crux main hand. Arcane Wine now conjures a wind core at a target location that continually damages and pulls nearby enemies to its center. Offhand, Ice Armor now targets an enemy with a frost mark that damages the target and nearby enemies, causing a stacking chill effect. Chest, Lightning Nova now targets an enemy with a lightning mark, causing them to repeatedly emit lightning novas centered on them. Pants, Meteor now targets an enemy with a star mark, causing meteorites to crash down on their location. Head, Black Hole's cooldown is reduced by 15%. Shoulders, after casting Meteor, your damage is increased by 10% for 3 seconds.
And in the case of Wizard, we have some very interesting items. I already have some of them, so I will soon upload a video of how they work.
Necromancer new items. Main hand, Command Golem now summons a Fulgur Golem that deals lightning damage. Offhand, Skeletal Mage now summons Thunder Mages that attack with Chain Lightning. Chest, Bone Armor now generates a pulse that reads your summons in lightning, causing them to form electric links between one another that damage enemies. Pants, Bone Armor's cooldown is reduced by 15%. Head, Command Skeletons now summons the Stormrider Legion, who automatically teleport to and damage enemies with lightning. Shoulders, Skeletal Mages strike faster with successive attacks, increasing their attack speed up to 20%.
And even if lighting doesn't suit a Necromancer, somehow I would like to change the class and check out these new essences. What do you think about it?
Blood Knight new items. Main hand, Ravage now causes the enemy to bleed, dealing damage over 3. Offhand, Skewer now shatters the enemy's armor, increasing their damage taken by 10% for 3 seconds. Chest, Tendrils of Blood now instantly pulls all surrounding enemies to you. Pants, Swarm of Bats increases in damage by 8%, up to 32%, for each negative status the target has. Head, Mephitic Cloud now releases a poisonous mist that deals continual damage to enemies within it. Shoulders, Swarm of Bats now calls a storm of bats to a target location, dealing damage and reducing enemy movement speed. Demon Hunter new items. Main hand, Impale now throws multiple knives forward in an arc. Offhand, Impale damage increases the closer the enemy is to you, up to 30%. Chest, Strafe critical hit chance increased by 20% against enemies with less than 50% health. Pants, Escape increases critical hit chance by 10% for 3 seconds. Head, Multi-shot damage now increases by 0.5% for every 1% enemy life lost, up to 30%. Shoulders, Escape now lunges forward, damaging and slowing enemies in its path. Demon Hunter old items. Duplicitous Prophetics, damage increased by 10%. The Excavator, damage increased by 15%. Barbarian new items. Main hand, Cleave is now a sequence of 3 attacks that sweep all around you, inflicting bleed and knocking enemies into the air, but it no longer has multiple charges. Offhand, Hammer of the Ancients now smashes into the ground, leaving an unstable area that erupts with additional damage after a brief delay. Chest, for every negative condition an enemy has, Hammer of the Ancients damage is increased by 8%, up to 32%. Pants, After using leap, your damage is increased by 10% for 4 seconds. Head, demoralized now pulls in all nearby enemies, damaging and stunning them. Shoulders, cleave tears the enemy's armor, increasing the damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds. Barbarian skills. Undying Rage, healing as a percentage of damage increased from 15% to 20% against players. Whirlwind, damage increased by 15%. Barbarian items, Eager Maelstrom, damage increased by 26%. North Wind, damage increased by 15%. Bitter Wind, damage increased by 16%. Crusader main hand, Falling Sword now follows you, damaging nearby enemies and reducing their movement speed. Offhand, Spinning Shield now causes 3 shields to orbit you, dealing damage as they pass through enemies. Chest, damage increased by 10% when Draw and Quarter is active. Pants, Draw and Quarter now calls a Horse of Light, causing those that stand within its aura to take damage. Head, Consecration now places you in a state of radiance, during which every 3 attacks causes you to erupt with the light, dealing damage. Shoulders, Falling Sword cooldown reduced by 15%. Crusader skill. Conjuration of Light. Cooldown of Conjuration of Light is increased from 26.4 to 32 seconds in. Battlegrounds. Crusader item. Blinding Wall. Cooldown until a player can be affected by blind again increased from 3 to 5 seconds. Monk. Main hand, Shield of Zen now attaches fire blessings to you and your allies, allowing your primary attack to ignite enemies. Offhand, within Inner Sanctuary, you and your allies deal 8% more damage. Chest, gaining Shield of Zen, increases the movement speed of you and your allies by 40% for 4 seconds. Pants, Imprisoned Fist destroys enemy armor, increasing the damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds. Head, Inner Sanctuary now moves with you, increasing your critical hit chance and that of your allies. Every nearby ally increases critical hit chance further. Shoulders, Wave of Light now attaches a bell to you and nearby allies, which continually resounds with bursts of damage. Monk item, Shimmerlin, damage increased by 12%.
And that's it for all new items added to the game. There's a ton of it, and it's a big challenge to deal with it all, but I will be with new analyzers as soon as possible. And as always, thanks for watching.